The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Porter, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Mr. DeJoy, do you know how big the Postal Service's deficit is?
So we lost $9.2 billion last year. Is that what you're asking? Or if you're asking about
Yes,
the $40 billion net equity?
Liabilities and debt.
I'm sorry?
The unfunded liabilities and debt, please.
Total is about $80 billion right now.
Okay, when was the last time the Postal Service recorded a net profit?
7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
I believe it was 2006. Mr. DeJoy, how much longer until the Postal Service runs out of cash?
We could run out of cash tomorrow if I pay our bills.
Okay, so at current levels, we can agree that 2021, now, soon. So my question for you is, you developed, last time we talked, you made some changes to the Postal Service in the summer and the fall, and according to the USPS Inspector General, the last time you made changes, you did not do any analysis of if those changes would save money. This is according to the USPS Inspector General. You're an executive and you did no analysis. Now, I've heard that you have a new strategic plan, but I'm really concerned that this plan may neither be a strategic nor a plan. Have you figured out if this new plan would save money and improve performance?
First of all, I will, while I respect the Inspector General, I disagree with the premise of the conclusion that you have reached, and if that was in the report, I disagree with that also. But having said that, we have extensive studies over the last 8 months to improve reliability of service and reduce cost and grow
Wonderful.
revenue.
Mr. DeJoy, will you provide those analyses to this committee?
When we announce the plan, we will produce a certain amount of information with regard to how we came about, what our solutions are. But the committee has its powers to request whatever it is that it needs, and it will go through the process. And we're not embarrassed by the work we did. We're actually quite proud of it.
Okay, so we'll look forward to requesting those analyses and those extensive studies you just referenced. Did you hire any consultants to help with these studies?
So the organization has had embedded consultants for a long time, and to the extent that the management team use consultants to support.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. DeJoy, are those consultants employed by the Postal Service or by outside organizations and hired on a contract?
I consider all consultants, when you say the word consultant, I'm thinking they're outside organizations that are hired by, by the Postal Service.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. DeJoy, who are those consultants?
We have hundreds of consultants, ma'am. I couldn't.
Would you please provide a list to the committee of the consultants that were involved in this strategic plan?
I can provide you whatever information we have. What I was about to tell you, if you let me finish, was that most of this plan was designed by about 150 people within the organization. It was a postal-produced analysis, and to the extent that any of those groups had consultants working within the organization, they may or may not have used them. But this is a postal leadership plan that was put together.
Thank you. Mr. DeJoy, you've said you're committed to managing the U.S. Postal Service with excellence. With that in mind, what are the aspects of Postal Service today that you view as most critical, that you treasure the most? Building a little bit on what my colleague from across the aisle, Mr. Higgins, just asked you. You mentioned the employees, but what do you value about what the post office does? What are you not willing to change just to make a buck?
I think as I said earlier, one of the key attributes of the Postal Service that I think is very important, both from the standpoint of what it does for the nation and also for its viability, because this Congress, and as previous Congresses, say it needs to remain self-sustaining. And until that
So
law
wait, Mr. DeJoy,
changes,
reclaiming my time. Mr. DeJoy, what is it that
The
the post
gentlelady,
office does that you treasure?
The gentlelady's time has expired, and I think the gentleman has tried to answer the question.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. I like Katie Porter. I always did, and I think I will always do. What is there not to like? Louis DeJoy got Katie Porter today. She literally took his hand and walked him to the school, didn't she? I was a little surprised that she didn't flip out her whiteboard. Maybe she thought it would be too much weight on the student to bear. Okay, jokes aside, so what happened here? Louis DeJoy is the Postmaster General and he testified yesterday to a House panel and discussed his new strategic plan that will address delivery slowdowns, among other things. And that plan was the one Katie Porter told him on the face that it neither looks strategic nor like a plan. The Postal Service is sitting on top of 188.4 billion in liabilities while reporting net losses in the order of billions every year in the recent past. The agency has struggled with financial problems as shipping rates declined and the agency is overburdened with obligations to fund health benefits for its retired workers. So, as a semi private entity, the Postal Service mostly funds itself through shipping fees. It is not taxpayer funded, but the federal government still controls it by controlling who sits on the board of the agency. Board chairperson Ron Bloom said that the agency could lose closer to $160 billion over the next 10 years without reforms. The years of financial stress, underinvestment, unachievable service standards, and lack of professional precision have resulted in a system that does not have adequate resiliency to adjust and adapt to the changing circumstances. That's what Louis DeJoy said during the testimony. And he was absolutely correct on that one. It is true, debt is exploding. Not a lot of money has gone in for reinvestment, and revenue due to competition is hard to come by. But the Postal Service performs an extremely important function to the society. If we were to transfer the goods transportation market completely to private players, we can guarantee that they will chop off the less profit making routes, such as transporting goods to someone who stays in a sparsely populated rural area, or they will transfer their cost onto those customers and make it more expensive to send and reach out to people who are at an uncomfortable business distance. So we need the postal service. Let there be no doubt about that part. But we also cannot allow USPS to keep sinking in debt and not make any money. At the very least, we need the service to break even. And it needs help from the Congress and an effective leader to get the service into that position where it can take care of itself. Right now, DJ, who is extremely good at getting into fights with congressional members but extremely lousy when it comes to managing the agency, is not helping. Neither the Congress. They don't have a clue how to go about getting the USPS back on its feet. The need to get a great leader at the top of the service is extremely high. We need possibly someone of exceptional pedigree, someone who is acceptable to both sides, someone who can be more diplomatic but also an extremely effective manager at the same time. It's a difficult task to find someone like that, but not impossible. And then once they find him or her, they should give them a free hand, enough money on hand, and in return ask for a significant performance improvement. The only way I see that happening is if some senators and congressional leaders band up and make it a mission to resurrect the USPS and work towards getting it back on track. It's the lowest hanging fruit, and Biden can make USPS the dry run for his bipartisanship agenda. Democrats, please do it, at least for the sake of the 500,000 employees who work for the USPS. You have a responsibility here to do that. Otherwise, all these discussions, testimonies, and the hours spent will be archived as useless sound bites. DJOY does not look like a good solution to the crisis, neither does the approach of Democrats and the Republicans in the Hill. They all need to stop, and USPS needs a complete reboot. Thanks for watching. If you like it, please subscribe.